The chill of November clung to Amelia like a shroud, mirroring the icy grip of grief that held her heart. The funeral had been a blur of hushed whispers, somber faces, and the oppressive weight of finality. Her grandmother, Nana Ilara, the anchor of her life, was gone. Now Amelia stood amidst the dispersing crowd, the grey sky mirroring the emptiness within her. Nana Ilara hadn't just been a grandmother, she'd been a confidant, a storyteller, a beacon of warmth in Amelia's often turbulent world. The reading of the will was a brief, formal affair. The lawyer's voice droned on, listing mundane possessions, until he reached the final item. To my granddaughter Amelia, I bequeath my house on Willow Creek Lane, along with all its contents, most notably the antique mirror in the attic bedroom. A flicker of surprise, then a pang of bittersweet nostalgia ran through Amelia. The house on Willow Creek Lane, a place of childhood summers, filled with the scent of Nana Ilara's lavender sachets and the sound of her gentle laughter. And the mirror, a tall, ornate piece with a dark, almost brooding frame, always tucked away in the dusty attic. As a child, Amelia had been both fascinated and slightly unnerved by it. Its dark glass seemed to hold secrets, reflecting not just her own image, but something deeper, something elusive. Now the house, with all its memories and mysteries, was hers. The lawyer handed her a heavy, antique key, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of the memories it unlocked. As she clutched the key, a sense of foreboding settled over her, a whisper in the back of her mind that this inheritance was more than just bricks and mortar, more than just a reflection in an old glass. It was a legacy, steeped in shadows. The drive to Willow Creek Lane was a journey back in time. The winding road, lined with ancient oaks, led to a secluded two-story house, its paint peeling and garden overgrown, yet still retaining a haunting charm. Stepping inside, Amelia was enveloped by the scent of dust and old wood, a familiar aroma that tugged at her heartstrings. The house was exactly as she remembered. The creaking floorboards, the faded wallpaper, the sunbeams filtering through the dusty windows. Her first night was restless. Every creak and rustle of the old house amplified in the silence, making her feel as though she were being watched. She found herself drawn to the attic, the air thick with dust motes dancing in the moonlight that streamed through a grimy window. There, shrouded in shadows, stood the mirror. It was even larger and more imposing than she remembered. The dark wood frame, intricately carved with swirling patterns, seemed to absorb the light, leaving the glass surface a pool of impenetrable darkness. Hesitantly, Amelia approached, her heart pounding in her chest. As she stood before it, she saw her own reflection, pale and drawn in the dim light. But then, for a fleeting moment, she saw something else, a flicker, a shadow behind her own image. The faint outline of a woman's face with sorrowful eyes and long, dark hair. Amelia blinked, and the image was gone. She rubbed her eyes, attributing it to fatigue and the strange atmosphere of the house. "Just my imagination," she murmured to herself, but a shiver ran down her spine. The feeling of being watched intensified, as if the mirror itself held a gaze of its own. Back downstairs, she began sifting through old family photos and documents, hoping to uncover some history of the mirror, or perhaps even the woman she thought she'd seen. But the records were sparse, filled with gaps and omissions. It was as if a part of her family's history had been deliberately erased, leaving only whispers and shadows. The mystery of the mirror and the fleeting image within it began to take root in her mind, a seed of unease planted in the fertile ground of her grief. Days turned into nights, and the unsettling feeling within the house grew stronger. Amelia found herself drawn to the attic and the mirror more and more frequently. The fleeting glimpses of the woman's reflection became clearer, more defined. It was no longer just a shadow. Amelia could now discern details: high cheekbones, a delicate nose, and eyes that held a deep, melancholic sadness. The woman's dark hair cascaded around her shoulders, framing a face that seemed both familiar and utterly unknown. One evening, as Amelia stood before the mirror, the reflection solidified. The woman's image was as clear as her own, superimposed yet distinct. She wore a dark, high-necked dress, its fabric shimmering faintly in the dim light. Amelia could even see the delicate lace at her collar. The woman's gaze met Amelia's, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. A chill ran through Amelia, not of cold, but of something deeper, something primal. The line between reality and illusion began to blur. Amelia started experiencing strange lapses in memory. She would find herself in a room with no recollection of how she got there, or start a task only to forget what she was doing moments later. A constant low hum of anxiety settled in her chest, a feeling of being disconnected from herself. The woman in the mirror began to subtly interact. A slight tilt of the head, a barely perceptible smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. These small gestures, though subtle, sent shivers down Amelia's spine. It was as if the woman was trying to communicate, to reach out from the other side of the glass. The once comforting solitude of the old house now felt oppressive, as if she was sharing it with an unseen presence, a presence that was slowly but surely making itself known. The whispers of the past were becoming a clear, chilling voice in her present. The subtle interactions escalated. The woman in the mirror began to influence Amelia's actions, initially through intrusive thoughts, whispers in the back of her mind. A sudden urge to rearrange the furniture in a specific way, a compulsion to wear a particular piece of Nana Ilara's old jewelry, a melody that would suddenly surface in her mind, haunting and melancholic. These impulses felt foreign, yet compelling, as if they were not her own. One morning, Amelia found herself standing in front of the mirror, dressed in a dark vintage dress that she had never seen before. It fit her perfectly, as if it had been tailored for her. Looking into the glass, she saw the woman's reflection smiling, a genuine, almost triumphant smile. The realization hit Amelia like a cold wave. She hadn't chosen the dress. The woman in the mirror had. The influence grew stronger, affecting her behavior in more noticeable ways. She started to withdraw from her friends, canceling plans and avoiding phone calls. Her once vibrant personality dimmed, replaced by a quiet, almost somber demeanor. Her friends noticed the change, expressing concern, but Amelia brushed them off, unable to explain the strange transformation she was undergoing. They saw her changing, but they couldn't understand the force behind it. One evening, her closest friend Sarah came to visit, determined to break through Amelia's self-imposed isolation. But when Sarah saw her, dressed in another antique dress, her eyes fixed on some unseen point beyond the reflection in the mirror, a chill ran down her spine. Amelia's eyes held a distant, almost vacant look, and her voice, when she spoke, sounded different, deeper, with a strange echo. Sarah left, deeply worried, a sense of dread settling in her heart. She felt as if she had been talking to a stranger wearing Amelia's face. Amelia herself was becoming increasingly disoriented. She would catch glimpses of herself in other reflective surfaces, windows, shop displays, and see not her own reflection, but the woman from the mirror. The line between her own identity and the woman's was blurring, threatening to dissolve completely. The whispers had become a constant murmur, a chorus of a life that wasn't hers, threatening to drown out her own voice. The mirror wasn't just influencing Amelia's waking hours, it was invading her dreams. Vivid, fragmented visions began to plague her sleep, glimpses of a life that wasn't her own. She saw a grand house, not unlike the one she now inhabited, but filled with life and laughter. She saw a young woman with dark hair and sorrowful eyes, the woman from the mirror, being courted by a handsome man. She heard a name whispered on the wind, Isabela. Other visions were darker, more disturbing. A heated argument, a slammed door, a woman weeping in despair. A sense of profound loss and injustice permeated these fragments, leaving Amelia shaken and disoriented upon waking. She felt as if she was piecing together a broken mirror, each shard reflecting a different piece of a tragic story. Driven by these unsettling dreams, Amelia delved deeper into her family's history. She spent hours in the local library, poring over old newspapers, census records, and genealogical charts. She discovered a distant relative, a woman named Isabela de Valois, who had lived in the area in the late 19th century. The records were scant, mentioning only her birth, a brief marriage, and a sudden, unexplained disappearance. It was as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. One afternoon, while searching through a dusty box in the attic, Amelia stumbled upon a hidden compartment in an old trunk. Inside, she found a small, leather-bound diary. The handwriting was elegant and flowing, and the first entry began with, "My dearest diary, I fear my heart is breaking." As Amelia began to read, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The diary belonged to Isabela. The fragments of her dreams were not just dreams. They were memories, echoes of a life lived long ago, now seeping into her own. The past was no longer a distant echo. It was a living presence, reflected in the mirror, and now in the pages of this forgotten diary. The diary entries painted a tragic portrait of Isabela's life. She had been deeply in love with a man named Raphael, but their families were embroiled in a bitter feud. Their love was forbidden, a secret whispered in stolen moments. Then a devastating betrayal. Raphael was forced to marry another woman, a union arranged for political gain. Isabela's heart was shattered, her world crumbling around her. The final entries spoke of despair, of a deep sense of injustice, and a growing feeling of being trapped, both by her circumstances and by the secrets her family kept. The last entry was abruptly cut short, as if she had been interrupted. As Amelia read the final words, a cold gust of wind swept through the attic, extinguishing the flickering candle she had been using. The room plunged into darkness, save for the faint moonlight filtering through the grimy window. A chill ran down her spine, and she felt a presence behind her. Slowly, she turned towards the mirror. Isabela's reflection was no longer a faint image. She was there, as real and solid as Amelia herself. Her eyes, filled with a profound sadness and a hint of anger, met Amelia's. "They stole my life," Isabela's voice echoed in the silent room, her voice a ghostly whisper that seemed to resonate from the very depths of the mirror. "They silenced me, erased me from their history." The influence of Isabela reached its peak. Amelia felt her own thoughts and emotions being pushed aside, replaced by Isabela's memories, her pain, her rage. She felt herself being pulled into the mirror, into Isabela's world, her own identity fading like a distant echo. She felt Isabela's desire for justice, for recognition burning within her, but a small spark of Amelia's own self remained. She remembered Nana Ilara's stories, her gentle wisdom, her emphasis on forgiveness and acceptance. A flicker of resistance ignited within her, a refusal to be completely consumed by Isabela's pain. She looked into Isabela's eyes, not with fear, but with a growing understanding. "I know what they did to you," Amelia whispered, her voice trembling, "but I won't let them silence you anymore." The fight for control over her own body and mind had begun. Amelia's words seemed to resonate with Isabela. The anger in her eyes softened, replaced by a look of profound weariness. "They took everything from me," she whispered, her voice laced with centuries of sorrow. "My love, my life, my memory." Amelia reached out a hand towards the mirror, her fingers hovering just above the cold glass. "I understand," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hand. "But holding on to this pain won't bring you peace. It's time to let go." A wave of emotion washed over Amelia, a torrent of grief, anger, and a deep longing for peace. It was Isabella's pain, but as Amelia acknowledged it, as she gave it voice, it began to dissipate, like mist in the morning sun. The connection between them shifted, from one of possession to one of empathy. Amelia wasn't fighting Isabella anymore. She was helping her. The room grew warmer, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The image of Isabella in the mirror began to fade, becoming translucent like a ghost receding into the shadows. "Thank you," Isabella's voice whispered, barely audible. "Thank you for remembering me." As Isabella's image finally vanished, Amelia felt a sense of profound release, not just for Isabella, but for herself. The weight that had been pressing down on her, the confusion, the intrusive thoughts, all disappeared. She felt like herself again, whole and complete. The next morning, Amelia went to the attic. The mirror was still there, imposing and beautiful, but it no longer held the same chilling presence. She looked into the glass and saw only her own reflection, clear and untainted. The faint scent of lavender, Nana Elara's favorite, lingered in the air, a gentle reminder of the love and wisdom that had guided her. Amelia never forgot Isabella. She researched her story further, piecing together the fragmented records and giving Isabella's life the recognition it deserved. She even managed to locate descendants of Raphael's family and shared Isabella's story with them, finally bringing the truth to light. Amelia stayed in the house on Willow Creek Lane for a while, finding solace in the quiet solitude and the memories of her grandmother. She eventually moved on, but she carried the lessons she had learned with her. The importance of remembering the past, the power of empathy, and the strength of the human spirit to overcome even the deepest pain. The line between sanity and the echoes of the past remained a thin one, but Amelia had learned to navigate it, carrying the memory of Isabella not as a haunting, but as a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit.